Hi everyone, welcome to today's Agile Friday. I'm Justin Burns from the Office of the CIO and I'll be your host today. Joining us is Filippo Morelli from Computech Incorporated. Filippo will be talking to us about lessons learned on the way to delivering at scale. This will be a 1-hour event with 30 minutes presentation from Filippo, followed by 30 minutes of Q&A. You can use the chat window to send questions at any time and we'll forward them on to Filippo after the presentation. Please submit questions privately to me, Justin Burns, or via public chat. Agile Fridays are a collaboration between the Office of the CIO and Results Washington. You can find out more and keep up to date at ocio.wa.gov/agile-fridays. A big thanks to Filippo and Computech for helping us out today. With that said, I'll turn control over to Filippo. Are you there?
Yes, I am, Justin. Thank you very much, first of all, for offering this time and asking us to present today, and for everyone else for taking the time to come out. So hope this is an interesting and maybe at times somewhat provocative conversation.
Great, I'm looking forward to it.
Great. So, you know, as I was getting ready this week, I was thinking about this WebEx, and I just, kept thinking about this Dilbert comment from the mid-90s, where video conferencing was brand new and his boss was talking to him, and probably most of you all have seen it, where Dilbert is in his pajamas, and he, of course, has a Dilbert puppet that is well-dressed in his professional clothing in front of the camera. And along those lines, since you can't see me, I was going to describe myself as having long dreadlocks, wearing a Bahama shirt. I've got hiking boots on, I've got a guitar slung on back, and I'm smoking a Tipperello, and I'll let you decide which parts of that description are real, if any. All right, so with that said, lessons learned on the way to delivering at scale, better, faster, cheaper. For the conversation today, I've chosen 5 specific observations to share with you all, frankly, from a myriad of lessons from 3 pretty extensive Agile transformations that I've been involved in or led since 1999. And these are in organizations varying between 100 and 600 technologists. So that's what I mean when I say at scale, or at least for me, at that scale. And you'll probably understand why that number scales for me, given my background. But I wanted to give just a couple of quick minutes of background on the company that I work for, as well as myself, just to give you a little more context for the rest of the presentation. So Computech's background: we're a several hundred-person software development and O&M operations and maintenance company out of the Washington, D.C. area. We operate IT portfolios for the federal government, and that's soup to nuts: production support, operations and maintenance, new development, legacy modernization. And we do so with a set of methods that we have really assembled from our leadership experience building software, building teams and organizations in the commercial sector largely, and also in product companies. We call our approach Agile O&M, which, as you all may imagine, leverage a variety of lean and Agile solutions. So we also have a pretty deep background in data, especially with large, complex, high-throughput data, obviously also with the analytics that go with it, and also have fairly specific methods for dealing with data in an Agile manner. Some of you may know, particularly data problems tend to be dealt with in a very waterfall-centric way. So my background: I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Computech. I have a background in computer science. My roots was in working in 2 to 12 person high-performing teams. In the first half of my career, I built search and analytic systems, lots of tooling, lots of test infrastructure and automation. And I've spent the last dozen or so years building and transforming teams and organizations to do high-performance software and service delivery. So let's talk a little bit about the subject today. I want to take some time and talk about 3 paradoxes which I frequently experience, and I expect you have as well, that I believe are at the heart of the obstacle to getting Agile. The first one is a desire to know the end result before we start, and this comes to risk, fear, fear of commitment, uncertainty, driving a lot of the things that humans tend to do in general. And, to no surprise, that's why waterfall exists and the waterfall approach exists. If we could just figure it all out at the beginning, then we could have less fear. And yet, the fundamental issue there is that software is what I like to call progressive revelation. And that is why the iterative and incremental delivery model is so important. The process of creating a new system is not something that we can conceptually define what it is that we need, but the specifics of what we really need is only something we discover by building it. And that kind of scares the business at times, and yet, we think of the common phrase from developers that they'll say that 2/3 of the way through the project, the customer changed the requirements and it's sudden frustration. Well, there's a reason why, because everyone's engaged in the process of figuring out what they need, so the model we need needs to support that. And Agile is the way of finding the best solution for the money and time available. The second paradox is the love-hate relationship with process. Large organizations seem to thrive on this process idea. And, as people within an organization, particularly beholden to the process, we hate its use as organizational mantra. In a lot of places I've seen it's used as policy to dictate how something needs to be done. It's a form of control. So the process is just an overused word. Sometimes it's used as a substitute for skill. And as many of us know, there's no amount of process that can substitute for actual skill. But yet, process is really important because it's at the essence of what we do. And so we need it, and it needs to be beholden to what we need to achieve. The third issue, and this one is a tricky one. I debated whether I was going to bring this up or not, but I do think it's important. Organizational written versus unwritten rules. Ronnie Lang says, I know this is a little bit of a tongue twister, but he says this really great statement. They are playing a game. They're playing at not playing a game. If I show them I see they are, I shall break the rules and they will punish me. I must play their game of not seeing I see the game. So how does that relate back to being Agile? Well, Agile is about performance and productivity, and it's about building and delivering software. And for folks in the world of technology and software, delivering software is the language of our craft. And yet, along the way, we run into a lot of obstacles, and those obstacles expose the unwritten rules in the organization, the things that we're not allowed to bring up that yet get in the way. They're the white elephants in the room. And so the fundamental question becomes that, organizations to varying degrees I've seen are playing a game. And, are there leaders that are willing to drive change, and where are they in the organization? So I think these, for me, are three kind of profound paradoxes that we deal with as we try and drive that Agile change within an organization. So let's talk about some of the 5 of the lessons that we kind of learned along the way of driving that kind of change against these paradoxes. The first one is that iterative delivery is the one Agile edict. So why is it in that of the many Agile methods and techniques, why is it that frequent delivery of code out of development is the one axiom? If someone asks me, what's the one Agile thing you could do? And I picked an arbitrary time box for iterative delivery of 2 to 4 weeks. But if you told a team that has to produce working code out of their development environment every 2 to 4 weeks, basically every significant impediment to delivering software is going to come to light. This is pretty profound because as a result of trying to deliver frequently, you are going to find out absolutely everything, that you don't have good requirements, that your customer is really not involved, that the product owner was somebody that is really not the champion of the product, that the team has a difficult time, the team is not well established as far as their staffing and what they need, the tooling is insufficient, the knowledge of what to solve is not there, the team's basic skills on how to work as a team. All right, all of these different issues, deployment barriers, lack of environment, all the various issues that get in the way of delivering with some consistent frequency is going to come to the surface. My advice would be, do not embark on this approach unless you're serious about improving your organization, because you're going to see everything that doesn't work. You'll see who the non-performers are. You'll see all of these obstacles I mentioned in your organization. You will surface the unwritten rules about how your organization behaves. But for those that do want to make the improvement, this is the one edict that will surface everything. And frequent delivery will then drive a continuous improvement agenda for delivering value to the business. And for tech, at least, for us, that's software, right? So from my perspective, the only true metric in software development is working software, ultimately in production. And, we say basically kills the misuse of the word done and its close brother, almost done. One other just quick comment about the visibility that you get once you start trying to deliver on a frequent basis. It's very important not to punish visibility, but rather use it as a method to coach, to provide support, and to remove obstacles. Leadership begins with setting the destination and then getting in with the teams and working like hell bottoms up to achieve the objectives. And this will create this approach of delivering is going to create a lot of transparency with the organization. So that's very important from a leadership perspective. You have to have the general best interest of the organization. And that leads me to the next observation. And that is to be outcome-based as an organization. We've often found that with IT orgs, particularly larger ones, they focus on process milestones instead of results. And also we see that a lot with sub-organizations that rely on kind of maintaining the status quo. So again, focusing on delivery of working code drives the organization members to become outcome-focused versus process or role-focused. That's particularly important. In the world of waterfall, I don't know that many people spend time thinking about it, but in the waterfall world, the roles of individuals are vertical, and they have very specific vertical skills. And so sometimes that makes you think of things like training and responsibility as very easy to dissect and subdivide, but in reality, work doesn't get done well that way. And so, you can have all these disciplines and competencies in certain roles, and at the end of the day, you can not deliver. So in the world of Agile, skills are cross-functional. That doesn't mean that there aren't people that have very specialized skills. Of course there are. But the skills are cross-functional, and that means that really people are multi-skilled and move across the world. And that's very important. So in that regard, in being outcome-based, accountability lies in the results versus, a checkbox view of accomplishing work. And we see a fair bit of that. So in an outcome-based environment, performance relies on relevant delivery of value. So, and that means that quality, for me, in that is innately baked into this value, and productivity of individuals and the teams is key to driving the value stream. We have a saying that I'll translate minus expletives in my company that, quote, at the end of the day, somebody has to write some bleeping software, quote. We see a lot of meta activities in larger organizations, just a lot of waste, a lot of meetings and ceremonies, et cetera, that just are not focused on driving to the outcome, but are just fixed on the interim process. And that's something that really needs to get worked out as one heads to working Agile at scale in an enterprise. Another observation, I learned this really in the first several years of doing this kind of work. It was painful. I thought that I could convince people because I was reasonably high verbal for a tech guy, and I could make a compelling case, and I figured I could convince people, tell them what we were going to do, convince them of it, and then go do it, and then demonstrate it, and everything would be great. It doesn't work that way. Spending time trying to convince the doubting Thomas of a new approach is really futile. And in fact, part of the reason for that is they're right when it comes to bringing up all these issues that can exist with a new approach. They're absolutely right. They can bring up all the possible problems, and you're just never going to win that battle. So how do you end up dealing with that? It's important to find people with a real need to solve a problem and a willingness to try a new approach. That's incredibly critical. And, there are a few reasons for that. The proficiency of any new approach takes a fair bit of time and perseverance, and trying something new initially slows productivity and may feel clumsy. So you need to have folks that are willing to go through that process to get to the other side. And then, over time, as individuals and teams start to demonstrate significant improvements, oftentimes my experience has been that the doubting Thomases, that have similar impediments will actually start to take note because they actually see that something works and they become interested. In particular, I know in my experience, I had someone in an organization where I was responsible for driving a lot of process and agile improvement. He was just completely against what I was doing. He saw it as a way for the organization to try and drive control into his organization. Probably one of the most anti-process people I've met. And over a period of time, I stopped trying to convince him, and over a period of time working with teams, the teams actually started to solve some problems and challenges and started to drive some consistency in what they were doing. And they got pretty happy about it. And so they would go tell them things that they were doing. And at the end of my story, he became basically the strongest supporter of the effort that was going on. Sorry, I just saw a message.
Yeah, we've had a couple reports of audio issues, of your audio fading in and out. And so if you've got a wireless link somewhere in the chain, if you can get a stronger signal, that may help. If not, we can carry on. You're still coming through. It's just every once in a while you get a little bit.
Okay, got it. Thank you. All right. So the next observation is that at the tip of transformation, one needs to strategically inject skill. Hold on. Let me talk a little bit about why that's necessary. I have seen oh my gosh, so many times I have seen organizations or groups decide to do something and they're going to send people off to training. Training is the solution. My experience has been that training is really great for exposure, but it is not helpful at all when it comes to development of proficiency. And development of proficiency is needed to actually drive a new outcome, much less to drive a new outcome in a way that makes you want to use that approach again. So in our case, we find that people with skills specialized in the desired capabilities, they're able to demonstrate new methods that can help develop, the team skills. We like to embed people in teams long-term, or with training, have coaching with sessions that go several months past the training. This past year in our organization, we had a group of folks that where we had almost 80 people go through a variety of Agile training teams, and they involved the business customers too, and that is really critical as well. And they get to watch, they get to do and learn, and they get to do, and it takes time to be able to do that. The business customers are really important. For me, they're part of the team, especially the product owners. And the example I gave with the 80 people, I think we had somewhere on the order of a dozen or so customers in that training, product owners and users. And often one of the things I have witnessed is that development leadership and the product owners gain tremendous insight into the impact of each of their own decision making, so from business to development and vice versa. And again, I think that speaks to the cross-functional nature of building software. And my experience is that I've had two very specific experiences where I've seen the insight build a newfound knowledge and respect between the business and the technology team, and they work in a very different way. So I really believe that injecting that skill and realizing that work is cross-functional and training over the actual work product is really important. But one has to remember that the transformation, occurs by doing things over and over again, and it's not unusual to get some backsliding along the way. There's ebb and flow to creating this transition, especially when you're dealing with an enterprise. You're just going to see advancement move at different rates in different groups. And it's a complex set of reasons as to why. And it requires, from a leadership perspective, patience. Patience and a focus on the outcomes and a focus on, solving problems and delivering better quality software all the time. The last thing that I wanted to bring up was automation. This is very, very important, particularly in the world of Agile, and particularly doing it at scale. And I believe the technology organization should automate as much repetitive work as is feasible. That's predominantly important when it comes to various platforms, such as continuous integration platforms that allow for a lot of automation around testing, around deployment, around builds, around reporting. These kinds of things remove burdens. The development team pays once to build that automation, pays a little bit to maintain it, and evolve it, and saves a lot of time when it's trying to deliver repeatedly. Self-service is another thing that we're big on from an automation perspective, especially around resource provisioning, especially around making information transparent and available. Tools such as Jira, and other capabilities. We have an in-house dashboard. The product that we've built, for example, that actually pulls all of the relevant project management information right out of project managers' artifacts, so they don't have to generate reports. So we're really big fans of automation. The president of our company really liked this saying. He liked to say that even the cobbler's children need shoes. So development organizations need to build software for themselves. One of the big things around automation is the issue of cycle time reduction. If you remember at the beginning, I mentioned that you want to deliver software iteratively. For an organization that doesn't, the notion of delivering software out of development every 4 weeks is a daunting thought. For folks that do Agile development, they think that 4 weeks is a long time. But I mentioned 2 to 4 weeks. Some folks even drop that down to a week. Other folks, particularly O&M groups, actually deliver with continuous delivery, and will use Kanban methods. And again, it depends on the kind of work that you're doing, what works best. But the issue is that with each cycle, there's a certain amount of overhead to be able to deliver code. And the notion of getting to where you can deliver faster is what's called cycle time reduction. So the issue in getting your cycle times down is not only getting adept as a team at delivery, but also at being able to remove burden that is in the way to be able to actually turn that crank, find that bug, deploy that code, and that's absolutely critical. So the investment is necessary, and that can be a challenge as well, because often teams and management feel burdened with the immediate work that needs to be delivered to the business, and so this is a bit of tail chasing the desire to do automation versus the reality of how much you can do. But it is absolutely critical. You have to beat back priorities to some degree and be able to solve these problems, or teams end up just perpetually in the ability to not be able to deliver anywhere near what the potential could be. And I slide under the bar with 5 minutes to spare, I believe.
All right, great. Well, thanks, Filippo. So that concludes the presentation portion for today. Thanks very much for that, Filippo. We're going to move on to the Q&A portion. We have a little over 30 minutes for Q&A. For everybody in the audience, using the chat window, you can send questions privately to me, Justin Burns, or via the public chat, and I will relay them to Filippo. Sounds like a great topic. A lot of very thought-provoking things there. I actually had a question for you starting out. What sort of implications as you scale up does this have on team sizes and how you break that down, and how do you deal with sort of the changes of the distributed teams and things like that come with starting to try and do these agile methods that are often focused on small teams at a larger scale?
That's a great question. It's a loaded question. It's probably a number of different perspectives. One of them is that the fundamental problem is solving larger problems. So we have two things. One, we have an organization and how an organization is designed to do what it fundamentally does as an organization. Then we have a technical architecture that reflects what work is being done. One of the key things that's important is that technical architecture needs to break the problem down in such a way that highly functional teams can build capability and solve problems. So sometimes the architecture is too convoluted. There's a high degree of coupling that makes it very, very difficult for teams to tease things apart. And so when you're dealing with stuff at scale, it's important to know, to be able to define the boundaries and be able to define the interactions of the boundaries. And that's one of the largest things that I've found as far as development. Of course, we're fortunate today because there are a lot of our architectures in flight. Particularly, you see this with SOA and ESB for larger organizations that create, some natural separation in that regard. I could say a lot more, but I'll stop there unless you have a specific question.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. I was on mute there. I'm sorry. We have a question from Lorena. When executing lean tools and techniques with your project team, in your experience, which have been the most effective?
Well, for lean, we're big fans of using Kanban, and I'll just mention a little bit about that. In particular, with our Agile O&M platform, we do not treat production support, bug fixes, and very minor feature work as new development. We treat it fundamentally different, and we use Kanban for that, and we actually have a fairly evolved version of that for software Kanban for us. And that is because in a lot of ways, lean manufacturing approaches are about reducing latency and increasing throughput, and that's very key in an O&M environment. For new projects, we use, and I'll just mention this quickly, we take an iterative development approach. We typically use Scrum for a number of different reasons, but we do iterative development, and that's because of the progressive revelation issue I mentioned, which is, the issue in new development is that you're building things and understanding how they can be useful to the business. And so we find that incremental approach much better to segmenting the risk in new development, which is a different issue than increasing throughput and latency. So Kanban is the core thing that we focus on for O&M.
All right, great. Remembered the mute button this time. All right, so we're waiting for a couple more questions to come in on the queue. Can you tell us a little more about some of the past work experience that you've had on scaling up Agile projects?
Sure. One of the things that I have found a lot of teams are challenged with, a lot of development is challenged with, is estimation. They'll say we have a problem, estimating. And the interesting part is when I get in and start working with teams on estimation, it often turns out that there's actually upstream issues. They tend to, and they don't necessarily see them as upstream issues. They actually see them as estimation issues because they've run into them at the point of doing estimation. So Sometimes it is a lack of understanding of what the requirements are, what the user stories are, issues in the backlog. Other times it'll be a lack of research or some upfront design work that's been not been done that's necessary to kind of understand the problem or prototyping. So estimation tends to be the fork point because that's the commitment point, and folks just do not feel comfortable. It's important, my experience has been that it's important for folks to actually try and solve the estimation issue. That's the outcome that they're getting for. They want some confidence in what they want confidence in what they're going to commit to. That's the outcome in that case. So from that position, one really needs to work backwards to try and solve some of those problems. And I found teams that that have worked through that have had really great success in actually impacting some of those upstream things. But often they, or frequently, I found that they don't actually realize that it's some of the entry components that are getting in the way of their estimating effectively as a team.
Okay, we have another question here. What is your approach for breaking a big project, maybe one that's started already as a waterfall project, down into an agile one?
Well, as I mentioned before, the one Agile edict is to actually get to where the team is making a commitment to deliver. So if you've got a group that's doing waterfall, it's getting them to where they can deliver out. They can deliver some feature capability, some vertical capability out once a month, every 4 weeks. They have to start down that path to figure out, well, how are we going to do that? We can't. And let me give you an example. In a waterfall project, and it depends. Some enterprises, it's crazy. I've seen 800-page requirements documents. I mean, you're not going to deliver anything in 4 weeks while somebody's trying to do that, right? So, if you've got to deliver, something in 4 weeks, what are you going to do? Well, we need some kind of requirements, some kind of user stories, something that we're actually going to go off and build. What is that going to be? That really starts the process of going through and solving, the issues of, are we getting incremental pieces of information from the business that we can build features against? How is our team actually working through figuring out how to break up the work, how to estimate it, how to tackle it, how to deliver it near production quality, and be able to demonstrate that in a month's time. That's a really huge hurdle to overcome. But it's a really important one to set out there. It will basically drive what the issues are at that point.
All right, great. I apologize to everyone. We're having some audio and other technical issues today. We will get those worked out here. We actually don't have any more questions in the queue. So is there anything else you'd like to share with the group before we wrap it up?
No, just thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, and my email address is on the presentation. If anyone has any questions, please feel more than free to send me a note, and I hope you all have a good weekend.
All right, thanks a lot. So thanks everybody for your great questions. Next week we're going to have Dan Mason from Septara joining us. You can find out more about what's coming up and view previously recorded webinars at ocio.wa.gov/agile-fridays. A big thanks again to Filippo, to Computech, and to Results Washington for helping to make Agile Fridays a success. Thanks everybody for joining us, and have a great weekend. See you next time. Thanks, Filippo.